Hello and welcome to Module 10 of IELTS Writing Task 1. Today we're going to be looking at the guide for grammar and vocabulary. So let's look in more detail at what we're going to do today. We're going to look at an overall strategy that you should use for grammar and vocabulary improvement and how to get high scores in grammar and vocabulary. We're going to look at a list of verbs, nouns, adverbs, adjectives, common verbs, nouns, adverbs, adjectives that you should use in IELTS Writing Task 1 when you're describing graphs and charts. We'll look at the grammar structure that we need to use to describe general trends and also the grammar structures to describe change, so things going up, things going down, things remaining the same. Then we're going to look at the grammar structures that we would use to make comparisons. We're going to look at the main tenses that people use in IELTS Writing Task 1. And then we're going to look at how to use fractions and proportions, how to use those to describe data in a chart or a graph. And finally, we're going to look at an action plan, how you can improve your grammar and vocabulary using everything we've learned so far. So in the last module, let's just review what we did in Module 9. In Module 9, we looked at what happens when you have two different graphs in one question. So multiple graphs in one question. And those questions are becoming more and more common in Task 1. So please go back and look at that if you haven't done so already. So let's start with a strategy. So a grammar and vocabulary strategy. Think about what the question's asking you to do. This is very important. For example, is it asking you to describe a general upward trend? Is it just asking you to describe a change in detail, something going up or something going down in detail? Or is it asking you to compare two pieces of data? So you have to think about what the examiner wants you to do in each different circumstance. And then when you know what they want you to do, then you can use the appropriate grammar structure and the appropriate vocabulary. So if you don't think of what the question is asking you to do, you won't know which grammar structure to use. So this first stage is very important. Then, as I said, you think about the most appropriate structure. So there are different types of structures that you can use for example, describing an upward trend, a general upward trend. There's 2 or 3 different structures. So just choose the most appropriate one, the one that you are most comfortable using. Then after you write it, you should check the sentence to make sure it is grammatically correct. And finally, remember that you should focus on accuracy, not range. So range is using lots of different structures. You shouldn't try to use as many different structures as possible. If you look at the first 2 points here, you will see that I talk about using the appropriate structure. So it's not about using as many different structures as possible. It's about using the appropriate structure. And I'm going to show you different structures that are appropriate for many different things that you might come up in Task 1. So remember, getting it correct, having the grammar that correct is the most important thing. So verbs, nouns, adverbs, and adjectives. It's essential that you know the difference between these 4 different types of words. If you don't know the difference between these 4 different types of words, you really need to focus on this before you start doing anything to do with Task 1 or Task 2. A noun is a thing or a person, like an object or a person or a business name or the name of a country or something like that. A verb is an action, it's a doing word. An adjective is a describing word, and an adverb describes a verb or an adjective. And if you can't think of those in the test, just think of the fat man walked silently. The fat man walked silently. So fat is an adjective because it's describing the man. The man is a thing, it's a person, so it is a noun. Walked is a verb, it's an action, so he's doing something, he's walking. So that's the verb. And then finally, silently is describing that verb. So you can think of that example if you are not sure in the exam. That's just a quick way to think of it. So here are some common Task 1 nouns. Now I'm going to show you lots of lists of nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. But don't try and read them all at the same time, because what I've done is I've categorized them to make them easier to understand. So for the nouns, I've categorized them like this: things going up, things going down, and things going up and down. So going up, we have a peak, a growth, an increase, a rise, a surge. Going down, a decline, a decrease, a dip, a drop, a fall, a slump. And for going up and down, a variation or a fluctuation. Now, I don't have time, and I'm sure you don't have time for me to go through the meaning of every single one of these words. I'll say two things. The first is, you don't have to understand or use all of the words that I'm going to show you today. There just isn't enough room in a 150 word answer to include all of these different words. But what you should do is, you should know at least 2 words for something going up, you should know at least 2 words for something going down, and you should know these words for fluctuations. You should pick, say you pick peak and growth. Learn these, know how to use these, know the meaning of these, and then you don't have to think about the others. Okay, same for going down. You could just remember decline and decrease, and then you don't have to worry about the rest of them. So pick the ones that you already know or ones that you want to learn, and don't try and remember long lists of words. It's really just a waste of time, because you will only talk about things going down maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole essay, and things going up maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole essay. So you don't need 6 different words to describe going down. So just pick the ones that you feel most comfortable about. And if there are any you don't understand, feel free to look them up in a dictionary. Here is a list of adjectives. These are common adjectives that people use. And I've divided them into large and small. So you could have, say we use increase, a sharp increase, a dramatic increase, a steep increase, a significant increase. If the increase was just small, you could describe it as a gradual increase, a moderate increase, a modest increase. So again, say pick 3 words that are for large and 3 words for small. So say you just wanted to learn gradual, slight, and steady. And then the same for here. Say you just learned steep, significant, and considerable. That will be enough for a 150 word essay. You don't need to learn all of them. Just pick, say 3, maybe 4 even, of the words you feel most comfortable using, and learn them. Learn the meaning, learn the synonyms, learn the antonyms, learn everything about those words. There are 2 words that I want to highlight in red: significant and steady. Okay, significant and steady have slightly different meanings to just large and small. So significant, something can be very small, but it is significant at the same time. For example, my son, my baby, is very small, but he is very significant in my life. So sometimes people get confused about significant. So sometimes even just a small increase, people describe it as significant. So look up this word significant and be careful when you use it. Steady can also mean small and large at the same time. You could have a steady increase that is very, very large, or you could have a steady increase that is very small. So both significant and steady can be used both for large and small. Here are some common adverbs, and I've divided them again into large and small. And you'll notice that most of the time, not all of the time, we just add ly to the end of them. So again, just pick 2 or 3 of these, learn them properly, and then you can use them in the exam. You don't need to learn all of them. Here are some verbs that we would use, and I've divided these into verbs describing data going up and verbs describing data going down. So again, maybe learn, say, 3 from this list. You could say increase, grow, jump, and 3 from this list. Say you learned these ones. You don't need to learn them all. However, remember when you're using verbs that they change depending on the tense. So grow, if it was in the past, it would be grew. Rise, if it was in the past, it would change to rose. Jump, if it was past simple, would be jumped. If it was a continuous verb, it would be jumping. So be careful with the tenses with these. So now that you have a range of verbs, a range of nouns, adjectives, and adverbs, you have learnt enough of them so that you can describe any data that you get. Now we'll move on to the grammar structures that you would need. So the first grammar structures we're going to look at is how to describe a general trend. So these are the things that you would put in your overview. So you mostly have to do these for graphs over time. So as we've discussed many times in this course, when you get a graph over time, you have to describe the general trend. There are two main grammar structures that you need to learn in order to do this effectively in the exam. Those are, the first one is there plus be plus adjective plus noun plus in plus noun phrase. And the second one is noun phrase plus verb plus adverb. Don't worry if you don't understand what these mean. We're going to look at examples now. So, if you look at this graph, I'm going to describe the general trends for all three countries, for USA, China, and Germany. And I'm going to use there plus be plus adjective plus noun plus in plus noun phrase. So the first one, there was a significant increase in the price of sugar. Okay, so there. Be, because it's past, becomes was. Adjective, significant. Noun, increase. In, noun phrase, price of sugar. So there was a significant increase in the price of sugar. Very simple. For China, there was a dramatic rise in the price of sugar. And Germany, there was a gradual growth in the price of sugar. So you'll notice there be adjective plus noun plus in plus noun phrase. Very easy, simple way to describe a general trend. And you can do this for line graphs, for bar charts, whatever has a general trend over time. Let's look at the other way that you could do it. You could do it by starting off your sentence with a noun phrase, then you use a verb, and then you use an adverb. So we're going to look at the exact same data, but we're going to use a different grammar structure this time. In the USA, the price of sugar increased significantly. So noun phrase, the noun phrase here is price of sugar. So the main thing we're talking about is the price of sugar. The verb, increased. We change increase to the past because we're talking about the past here. So we add ed. And then the adverb is significantly. So noun phrase, price of sugar. Verb, increased. Adverb, significantly. The price of sugar rose dramatically in China. So we've changed this a little bit. Instead of putting the country at the beginning of the sentence, we've put the country at the end of the sentence. You can do either. The price of sugar, noun phrase. Rose, verb, dramatically, adverb in China. Very simple. Now we've changed it a little bit more. We've put the country in the middle of the sentence. Again, absolutely fine. The price of sugar in Germany rose gradually. So the price of sugar, noun phrase, verb, rose, and adverb gradually. Now, there's no rule that says you should use noun plus verb plus adverb instead of there plus be plus adjective plus noun plus in plus noun phrase. Just use the one that you're comfortable using. Whatever one you're most confident about using, use that one. I just want to show you both. So, describing change. So, we've already described our general trends in our overview, but then we need to get into more detail in our details paragraphs. So we need to look at how to describe change for graphs and charts. you'll normally have to describe how the data changes in the details paragraphs, such as increases and decreases. You'll also have to describe change when comparing two or more dates. So this isn't just for graphs over time. Sometimes you'll just get two graphs. One will be one date and one will be the other date. And you'll have to describe the difference between those two, so the changes in data between those two. There are three ways you can do this. This is the first structure, so you can use this structure again. This is the second structure, there plus be plus noun plus in plus noun phrase. And the third way is using fractions or multipliers. Again, don't worry if you don't understand these three. We're going to look at examples for each of them. So a noun phrase plus a verb plus an adverb. The population of the USA will decrease slightly. So the noun phrase is the population, verb decrease, and adverb slightly. And feel free to pause the video at any time just to look at the data and have a look, think about the grammar. If I'm going too fast, just pause the video at any time. Second one, China's population is projected to grow considerably. So considerably, adverb, grow, verb, China's population, noun phrase. And you'll notice that I put two future tenses. So we'll use a different color for that. Will and projected to, two future structures, because we're talking about the difference between 2015 and 2050. But you won't obviously use future structures all the time. You'll have to look at the graph and think about the dates that you're looking at. The population of Germany is predicted to decline sharply. So you'll notice you have the noun phrase, you have the verb, and you have the adverb. The second one, this is the second structure. There will be a decline in the population of the USA. There, obviously there. Be, noun, decline, in, noun phrase, population of the USA. Very, very simple. There is predicted to be a surge in China's population. So there, be, surge in China's population. So there, be, noun, in, noun phrase. Is predicted to, this is a future structure again. And the third one, there will be a decrease in Germany's population. So there, be, noun, in, noun phrase. So the third way that we can describe change is by using fractions and multipliers. So for example, the population of the USA will increase by nearly half. So if we look here, it will increase by nearly 50%, by nearly half. So that's an easy way to show an increase. The population of China will nearly double by 2050. So if you look here and here, you'll notice that it will nearly double. It will go up by 2 times. And the population of Germany will be less than half of what it was in 2015. So if you look at the populations of Germany for 2015 and the population for 2050, it will be less than 50%. So this is just another way that you can describe increases and decreases. And you can choose either one of the 3 ways, whatever one you feel most comfortable using, whatever way is most appropriate for the data. So next, we're going to look at the grammar structures that we need to use to make comparisons. It is essential that you're able to make comparative structures. So these are very, very common structures that we use every single day to compare things, and you probably have learned these when you were learning English at a very low level. This is kind of elementary, pre-intermediate level, so you should know these already, but let's just go through them so you'll be able to identify them and link them to the question. So they include, these are the 5 different types of structures that we use to make comparisons. Don't worry if you don't understand them, we're going to look at examples. So let's look at this pie chart. If we were comparing the different social networks in this pie chart, how could we use the different structures to do that? So first, we could say more people use Facebook than any other site. So we have used more plus the noun is Facebook and then nan. So more, noun, than. And then any other site, or we could say whatever we're comparing it with. Fewer, noun, Twitter, than, and then whatever we're comparing it with. And then a one-syllable adjective. So the one-syllable adjective here is high. High is just one syllable. And low is just one syllable. So we just add er to the end of it, and then than. So a higher number of people use Facebook than any other site. A lower number of people use Twitter than Facebook. So remember, for one syllable adjectives, you just add er. This is very, very simple English. You should know this already. Here are the other three structures for making comparisons. Facebook was more popular than any other social network. So more adjective is popular than any other social network. This popular has more than one syllable, so we don't add er to the end of it because it has more than one syllable. We say more popular or more beautiful or more attractive. One syllable, we could add est. So we could say Bebo had the lowest figures of any social network. We could say Facebook had the highest figures of any social network. The most, least, plus adjective of more than one syllable. So popular is the adjective and it has more than one syllable, so we just say the most. The most popular site was Facebook and the least popular was Bebo. So there are 5 different ways that you can compare structures. So whenever you are comparing, think about the most appropriate structure that you can use. Sometimes you'll be able to use 3 of these structures or 4 of these structures. If so, just pick the one that you're confident about using, that you know 100% sure is correct. Remember, a focus on accuracy. So task 1, tenses. Let's look at the most appropriate tenses to use for task 1. It is essential that you look at the dates of the graph chart and then adjust your tenses accordingly. The examiners will be looking for your ability to do this. This is one of the first things that the examiners will look at when they're marking your grammar. They know what tenses, obviously they know what tenses should be used, and they will look to see if you have made any mistakes. So it's very, very important that you focus on the date. If it's a date in the past, use the past. Think about whether the data is past, present, or future. So if it's no date, it will just be present. You'll just be using present simple if there's no date at all. But if it's in the past, you'll have to use a past tense. If they're talking about future, you'll have to use a future structure. So the main tenses are this: past simple, present perfect continuous, present simple, future perfect, and will. So I'm not going to go through each of these because these are very basic tenses and you should know these already. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to review, take each of them and review the situations that you should use each of them in. Most of you, if you're trying to get a band 7 or a band 8 or even a band 9, you will know these tenses very, very well. So you won't really need to know them, but it does no harm to just review them. Second thing I'd like you to do is compare. Compare it with the model answers that I have provided to you in this course and the model answers that I've given you on my website. Look at them, think about the tenses that I'm using, and think about why I used that tense. Then practice. Practice with the questions I have given you and think about the tenses you're using. So the final thing we're going to look at today is proportions and fractions. So often the data we will see in task 1 will be expressed as a percentage such as 52%. However, we can express these as fractions or proportions to help us vary our language. So you might see, for example, 52% in the question. It's very easy just to copy 52%, but you don't want to do the easy thing. You want to show the examiner that you're better than most candidates. You want to show them that you deserve a 7, 8, or a 9. So what you do is you change 52% to a fraction or a proportion. This will help us improve our grammar score and our vocabulary score. So let's look at how we can do that. Here are fractions, lots and lots of different fractions. 73%, nearly 3/4, but 74% could be nearly 3/4. 72% could be nearly 3/4. It's not exact. 51%, just over a half. 52, 53, 54, we could say those are just over a half. Don't get really technical and try to... Okay, so what I'll let you do is I'll let you look at them, and these will give you an idea of the different fractions that you could use. These are the most simple fractions that you could use, and as I say, they're not exact numbers. If you look at a number and you can't think of the fraction, don't use it. Don't sit there for 2 minutes trying to do your long mathematics in your head. Only if they're very obvious, and most of the time they will be very obvious. If you do lots of past papers, you'll notice that these are very, very common percentages because the examiners want to give you a chance to show them that you can use fractions. You can also use proportions. So 70%, that's a large proportion. Anything over 50% is a large proportion. 71%, you could say a significant proportion. Again, anything between 50 and 99 is a significant proportion, or significant majority, sorry. So anything over 50% is a significant majority. 15%, for example, is a small minority. Say anything under 15%, you could say is a small minority. 3%, an insignificant minority. So things like 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, these are very insignificant. They're not really significant, so you could describe them that way. So let's look at some examples. A significant majority of people will use Facebook. So if you look at the figure here, it's 72.46%. That is a very significant majority. Nearly a fifth of users will use Twitter, so 17%. That's nearly 20%, so nearly a fifth will use Twitter. And a tiny minority of users will use Google+, so 2.9%. That is a very, very insignificant or tiny minority that you could use. So now that I've shown you the main structures, the main vocabulary, and the main things you need to think about when using vocabulary and grammar in your Task 1 answers, let's now think about what you should do next. You can't just watch this one module and learn everything immediately. That's not how grammar and vocabulary work. They take a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. So how can we improve by using this module, using the things we've learned in this module? First thing, make sure you understand the basic grammar structures we discussed in this lesson. But most of the grammar is very straightforward. The examiner does not expect you to use very, very complex grammar, but they do expect you to use specific grammar specifically used in Task 1. Compare these with model answers. So look at my model answers, look at my sample answers, and think about the structures that I used in there. That will help you understand. Then you should practice slow. So don't try and do Task 1 in 20 minutes when you're focusing on grammar. Think about what structures and grammar you need for each part of your report, each part of your essay. Focus on getting them correct, and then get them corrected by someone. So if you got the VIP package, you can send them to me and I will correct them, or you can get your English teacher to correct them for you. But you should take your time, go through each of the things, each of the key features, each of the things in your details paragraph, and think about them deeply. think about what structure, what grammar do I need to accurately tell the examiner what is happening. Then when you've thought about that, focus on writing the sentence correctly, and then get someone to tell you if it's correct or not. Finally, after you've done that, you can start practicing fast. You can start doing it in 20 minutes. When you have practiced slow for long enough, these structures, this grammar will become very, very natural to you, and you'll be able to do everything in 20 minutes, use a range of structures that are appropriate and get them correctly, and then you will get very high marks for your grammar and for your vocabulary. So that's it. In the next module, we're going to move on to one of the more specialized questions. We're going to learn step by step how to answer a process question. So a man-made process and a natural process. So I hope you find this module useful, and I'll see you in module 11. Thank you very much. Goodbye.